Hi, I'm Abby Coles. I'm from England. I'm from London, and I moved to Colombia 9 years ago to work with a mission organisation called Latin Link. And I met Pipe.
I'm Pipe. I'm Colombian, and I'm the Latin Link team leader and the short-term coordinator.
And so we married 4 years ago. We've got a little girl called Chloe and a little baby on the way.
So we have been here for maybe 43, 44 days in lockdown at the moment, and the economy is based on day-to-day life. So lots of people are really struggling in terms of money and economy, as well. People is at their houses. We are not allowed to go out unless we go for food and for medicines. So it has been really restricting here.
It's been very difficult for people because they don't have the same job security as they do in the UK. So a lot of people have just lost their jobs. Many people who have been able to keep their jobs have been having to receive reduced salaries. And when you're working on the minimum wage anyway, which is about £250 in English money, when you're working on half of that per month, it's really difficult. There's a lot of people who are just needing to rely on food handouts every day so that they can survive, literally survive.
At the moment in Colombia, we have around 7,500 cases and 230 people dead. So the number has been rising up in the last days. There is loads of Venezuelans that have been arriving for the last maybe 2 or 3 years, even 5 years probably, here to Colombia, and they don't have any place to live or any medical insurance or any protection for the government. They are living in the streets or walking back to Venezuela.
Even in the last 2 weeks, we've seen an increase in the number of Venezuelans just walking around on the streets, just begging, and many of them are holding 3 or 4, 5 children in their arms, walking around in clothing that is more suitable for Venezuela than Bogota. Then you can tell that their situation is pretty desperate.
Okay, so as a short-term coordinator, I try to take care of all the volunteers that come to serve in Colombia. It's affecting loads what we do. A team of 4 people was coming here to serve in the coast of Colombia, and we have to evacuate them, people that was working here and finishing their time, and they have to go back home because of the virus before all the borders were closing. We have a lot of numbers here of people, a lot of people here serving, but now they have to leave. And that as well affect the projects that we are serving with. They have less hands to work with the kids. They are closing as well. So the people that is serving with them, they are not allowed to go. Kids are not allowed to go out. So as well, that is affecting of how the projects itself are working.
Yeah, a number of the projects that we work with have feeding programs for the local children. And for some of those children, it's the only proper meal they'll receive all day, and so that's had a big impact. When all those projects had to close, all of those kids are now missing out on those meals. So a number of the churches have tried to organise food parcels, which has not obviously been easy. When you live in poverty or in a very, very vulnerable economic situation, the impact on your life of losing the help from a local project is really big. Also, the team that we were working with, that were working up in the coast, they'd come to help do some building work in a project which was working with their local community, with doing some kids work and youth work. And they'd started the building work and then had to be evacuated. So the building work was left half done, but it wasn't really stable enough to leave it in that place. So then the local people suddenly had to pool all together to try and get this work finished so that it would be left in a stable condition. So that was really hard for them, that living in already vulnerable conditions, they suddenly had this work pulled on them. So that was really devastating for us. We've worked with that community for many years and we really loved them, and seeing them left behind like that was heartbreaking for us.
As well, as you know, churches are not allowed to come together in the buildings. So for pastors and all the members of the churches, it's been really difficult, and they are finding ways to connect and just trying to learn how to use that in social media, how to use social media and how to use Zoom and all those tools that are virtual in the best way.
Yeah, which in some ways has been great because we've been able to meet up with some young people more easily. So we've been able to do some more mentoring and meeting up one-on-one over the phone and on Zoom. But there is still there's something that's missing in that relational, personal contact with them. And also some of them have started telling us about some of them who've got more difficult, more complicated family situations, being effectively trapped at home in their families, and the arguments, the tension that's causing has been very stressful for them, and trying to guide them through that has been really hard. On Sunday night we had an amazing prayer night with them where we used the UK Blessing song that's just been released, and we found a version of it in Spanish online, and used that to spend a bit of time praying for our nation. We got them all standing all across their houses, all of them in their bedrooms individually with their arms raised, holding hands across the screens to pray for Colombia. And they said to us after that was a great time. But yeah, that's been a big part of our role as well in this time of helping guide the young people.
Please pray for all the people in need, including all those Venezuelans and migrants that have been walking through Colombia to get back to their house in Venezuela, and as well to try to find houses. So please pray for them to have a shelter, and as well for the Colombians in need that depend of day-by-day economy, and they are not able to do that.
Please also pray for the projects that we work with who have sort of felt a bit left behind, some of them, as people have had to leave, and some of them very suddenly without even really being able to say goodbye. So please pray for them as they process having to let people go, and then themselves work out how they're going to continue serving in the communities, especially with the projects that are working with everyday need of helping to try and feed people. There's a lot of fear in Colombia. We've had a lot less cases than in the UK, but there's a real fear that has gripped people, and I think has caused a lot of inhibition in people wanting to help others because they're so afraid of being infected.
God has been amazing because we can see how we can go to the basic stuff, to the basic life, to a simpler life, and then realizing how blessed we are. Realizing that we have the things that we need, and we don't need that much. So being together as a family with our daughter, with God providing us, that have been a blessing, is really good. So God has been encouraging me, just to see how good He is, even in the midst of this pandemic, in the middle of the pain, in the middle of the sometimes don't know what is going to happen next, but yeah, knowing that God is with us, that really has been encouraging us.
And on a kind of more spiritual, philosophical level, our pastor at the church that we attend, where we're youth pastors, he has been doing a great sermon series, which he's called Arba'im, which is apparently the Hebrew word for 40. And in this time of quarantine, coming from the word 40, he's been looking at a series of 40 days or 40 years in the Bible where people have been in a period of 40 days or 40 years. And his thread, I guess, through all these 40 series has been that 40 symbolizes a time of trial that leads to a time of change. So thinking, wow, what is this journey that Jesus is taking us on as we're going through this time of quarantine? We're facing trials, but how are we getting to change? What is the change that Jesus is bringing? And having that openness to God and saying, this is not comfortable, but we're willing to hear what you have to say.
I think God is inviting us to be creative in how to serve now. So that has been really encouraging for me to think and to see as well churches being creative, to see projects being creative of how they can help in a different way.
We've got an amazing opportunity here as a church to speak out and to become known as a people speaking out a voice of love, a voice of blessing, and saying, God is for you, God is with you, God loves you, He is in this with you. Changes like that are exciting and inspiring, and make me eager as well to get to this point where we can get back out into the communities and be that living symbol of love and of blessing to our nations.